Good evening, everybody. We are here at Alterno Cafe. This is the colonial zone in Santo Domingo. The streets are Arzobispo Meriño and Restauración. And we are here to talk about coffee. We are here to taste some coffee. I am also tasting some empanadas. That is outside the schedule, but that is on me. And I am here with, this is going to be in English, even though my native language is Spanish and he's too. So if something goes wrong, please don't judge us. Only he can make fun of us
Because they make fun of me.
because we make fun of him speaking Spanish. So today we are. I haven't introduced myself. I'm sorry. I'm not educated. I am Carlos Sánchez. I am a stand-up comic. I am a host of a late-night show called Esto No Son Horas, and I used to have a podcast that's called Asigun. And to my right is Ariel Contreras. He has a coffee farm in Manabao, Jarabacoa, La Vega. And Chad Wallace also has a coffee farm called Spirit Mountain. How's your called?
Reserva Trogon.
Reserva Trogon, which is a very easy name to say by somebody who only speaks English. There you go. Try this. Reserva Trogon. I'm sure you're gonna do it wrong. And he has Spirit Mountain, which is also a coffee farm, and Héctor Caravajal, which has a beautiful coffee shop in Westchester, New York. And he's also and he has his own coffee brand, and you have your own coffee brand,
Starting to create.
and you have your own coffee brand. And my job here is just to let them talk after I finish all this long introduction and taste the coffees and the empanadas. That's it. That's what I'm not getting paid, so so I'm gonna have a lot of coffee to compensate and a lot of empanadas. So, guys, I'm gonna throw out a general question, and you start talking. What is the importance of coffee besides all the obvious reasons that everybody knows?
I think the veteran should.
You want me to? Okay. For everybody that doesn't know, the Dominican Republic, we as a coffee producing country consume more coffee than any other coffee producing country, which is remarkable. And yet, as all the baristas that are really into specialty coffee, we're probably only about a decade into learning about enjoying quality coffee, not just because it's like the quality of the cup, but like where it's coming from, the producers that are producing it, the living wages that we're paying our employees, how we're taking care of the environment. So coffee plays this critical role socially in our civic world, but it's also very important environmentally. And there's massive tourism around coffee today in lots of countries, and we're again starting that here in the DR. So it's such a key hub that affects so many levels of society.
What's the environmental importance of our coffee?
So a lot of people think, oh, it's shade-grown coffee tastes better. It can, but really there's so much coffee grown in the world, and really the best or the most efficient way to grow coffee is to grow it conventionally, which is full sun, using lots of abonos or fertilizers, using pesticides and herbicides to keep the critters and the weeds down. And it really is it's like this green desert. You look at these mountains they look beautiful because you're just rolling hills with coffee plants on it, but there's no birds, there's no insects, there's no life outside of the coffee.
Yeah.
But very efficient. As coffee grows, the slower it ripens, the better the quality. So, there you're looking at elevation, cloud cover, the cover of the canopy, the forest overtop, all these things affect and slow down the ripening process. But it really is a critical product that traditionally comes in and replaces the natural forests. Whereas you don't have like plains where there wasn't trees. We're coming in cutting trees down to grow coffee. So for those of us that are trying to learn how can we do good business, grow coffee in a sustainable way with the forests and the plants and the birds and all the bees and insects together, and that's a challenge.
There really are like our farms are like the opposite of what you just described, but this like mountaintops full of just pure coffee, and that's it. If you go to our farms, you're gonna start to like you have many options for things to see. Like if you look underneath your feet, you're gonna see a bunch of earthworms. You're gonna see decomposed leaves. You're gonna see that's like the soil is very much alive.
Yeah.
If you look up, you're gonna see, let's say, lizards climbing up the trees. You're gonna see lots of birds and so on. So it's a very dynamic, and coffee becomes a part of the ecosystem instead of something that replaces the ecosystem that's there.
Yeah, and
No.
like that diversity, and it looks como un desorden. It looks like very disorganized because you're walking around and it's not necessarily nice rows and all like uniform trees that are all like the same elevation. It really does like, wow, it's creative and we can appreciate it, but some people think of agriculture, think of just like this organized system.
Yeah.
Lines.
And everything the same size and everything. I learned that from my wife that when you go to the supermarket and you see all the tomatoes, they are all the same size, all the same color, all the same beautiful. And there's something wrong with it.
There's something
That's not nature.
Right.
Nature's gonna give you this tomato and this tomato, and one of them is kind of brown and the other one is kind of red, but they are all tomatoes. That's what's supposed to be. So Hector, you're obviously a coffee lover, and so how do you go inside the world of coffee?
I don't go inside the world of coffee. I mean, I think that for me, my introduction to coffee was me trying to bridge a gap for me and my community. So when I think of coffee, I think of community, culture, family. I was born here in Benin, but my family migrated to New York when I was 8 years old. And I've been there 20 years now, so I'm 28. Easy math, right?
Yeah.
And in those 20 years, you realize that sometimes there's things missing because you leave home for some opportunities, but then home is still home, and then there's a gap of where you're from and where you're at, and then how do you fix that? And that's what inspired me to get into coffee, for family, culture, community. That's a big part of Don Carvajal Cafe, like what we do, When I had this idea 7 years ago, it was because I didn't see that in the market in New York. Specialty coffee, I feel like, was missing the Dominican touch. And I think that we make a lot of great things in making a pub.
But all the coffee people can take. I'm sorry, what's the name of the store again in Westchester?
Don Carvajal Cafe.
Don Carvajal Cafe. So all the coffee that people can taste over there is Dominican.
Like 90%, majority of it.
Okay.
I've also been to Colombia, and I have friends that have a farm there. I have Brazilian coffee in Costa Rica. So I like to, when I started, there was no Dominican coffee that I had access to. So I started with Costa Rica. Then I went to Colombia. And my goal was eventually to get to Dominican coffee because I had no access to it.
Why?
Didn't know enough people. Now I know this guy. You know what I mean? But I didn't know enough. I'm sorry for that. Horrible, right? I feel like I didn't know enough people. And then it's also when you're a small player, like, you're not going to ship un saco de café to New York. It's going to cost you.
Yeah, and really the distributors, the importers, there's very little of our coffee that can be found outside of the Dominican Republic because people generally buy it and it goes straight to this coffee shop or to this roaster. Yeah. And so when you go to the big importer, it wasn't on the menu. So it's not like, oh, I want Dominican coffee. It wasn't even there.
There was a big gap. So I always had that sense of like, this is missing.
Yeah.
And that's why I started my company. And then here we are now, which is pretty cool to see the evolution of Dominican coffee and how important it is to our community.
Yeah, and you show that by traveling back to your native country on a regular basis to develop those relationships. So you're bridging that gap.
It's the goal.
We'd love it. So we were talking also about the importance of tourism around coffee. We, as an island in the Caribbean, we obviously have a huge tradition of tourism towards beaches and resorts. But last years, we've been seeing that people want to come to the beach and want to come to the resort, but they also want to get out of there. I don't know if it's too pretentious to think that maybe coffee farms can manage the same amount of tourism as resorts in the beach. But for sure, there is a market. For sure, there is people that come to the country to see both things, or maybe just to see coffee farms, because that exists in other countries. So we can start growing that market. So what can you guys talk about that?
I don't think it's a matter of wanting to hear. Like, obviously, we're not gonna get as many tourists as these like big resort chains.
Yeah.
But also like I don't want to say quality either, but like how much, let's say someone that comes to a coffee farm and that also enjoys like bird watching, and so how much is that person going to spend at those places, and how much is going to impact the communities around the coffee farm as well that provide services to the coffee farm, and like everyone that goes there as tourists. So I think the potential impact there cannot be underappreciated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned birds. Birding is the largest travel leisure sector in the world. Yeah, people that travel to the country
Travel leisure sector was there?
for birding. So people that travel for tourism focused on a single theme.
Yeah.
And birders make it the largest ones in the world. It's amazing. They spend more money traveling the world than any other sector,
Wow.
period.
Okay.
And so when you think of the connection between birding and coffee, like we were Smithsonian certified with Bird Friendly for almost 2 decades.
Yeah.
And that connection is really cool, especially in an island here where we've got so many endemic birds that can only be seen here.
Yeah.
And coffee farms can provide that environment for birds. And so that's a huge tourism sector that we're currently not exploitando, like taking advantage of in this country.
Yeah. And there's a connection. Because if someone enjoys bird watching and someone enjoys really good coffee, most likely, and then they're from the States or Canada, for example, they can find birds during the wintering periods. They can find, let's say, birds from the northern hemisphere here at the coffee farm. So our farm serves as like wintering places and areas for those birds.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you'll find the bignell thrush like on our farms.
Yes.
That live up in Massachusetts in the summertime, but they're here in the wintertime.
Great. Hector, have you seen that through the coffee shop, like waking up an interest in people, like saying, I would like to go there and see more about these coffee beans and these coffee farms all the time? All the time?
Some people have also visited farms that I work with. People send me selfies, and I'm like, "Who's that?" It's like, they were at your coffee shop last week. Oh, I didn't know that. But I think that it's not like a huge amount of people. It's like a niche. But the people, I'm one of those people that you ask me for something, I'm gonna just give it to you. Like, here's the key.
Yeah.
And then it's up to you to really go take the key and do it.
Yeah.
So people always ask me, where should I go for this? I'm like, here.
Yeah.
Other people actually here. And some people actually go, and some people don't go. But when people actually do go, it blows my mind.
Yeah.
I actually love it. Because to think that you're gonna take my word for it, it's not like travel. It's just to really spend your money, bought a flight, booked the hotel, and you went to where I told you to go. Like, I love that I have that trust with my community. But it has happened, and I've seen it a lot. And I think that we're getting to that point where people come to my shop, and I'm always trying to bridge the gap. I think the biggest thing that the industry is missing, especially in the Dominican Republic or in the Dominican market or the Hispanic market, is the education.
Yeah.
And I think we're missing a lot of education in a lot of things, but particularly in coffee, because that's what we do. And I think the biggest thing that I do is educate people. Some people don't even know what a coffee cherry looks like. They don't even know.
Coffee what?
Coffee cherry. I said it.
Okay. Yeah. That's enough.
Yeah, they don't know where it grows. Like, what does the hand look
No
like?
idea. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, the coffee's a plant. Like, some people have no idea.
If it's 3D printed or something.
Exactly. So it's like bridging that gap, and then sometimes when I walk people through these experiences, they're like really intrigued to know more. You know what I mean? Some of our people, their parents left and they were born out there, and they never had that campo experience or leaving out the city and stuff like that. Some people have never been outside of a resort when they come to the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
You know, so it's bridging that gap for those people.
So I'm sure there's a bunch of other interesting questions that we can keep going here, but I would like to move to those questions that will bring the coffee and we can start drinking it.
I was thinking the same thing. A lot of. So this morning we get to try my new coffee
Oh yeah.
from a new farm.
We're gonna try Café Trogon for you guys it's gonna be the first time. For me, it's gonna be my second. Okay. We're gonna have a natural processed coffee. It was grown at 1,786 meters above sea level, so quite high for the Dominican.
So it's 300 meters higher than actually my farm.
Yeah,
So we go our coffee.
probably the highest farm here in the country. So we can expect something interesting now. David, amo listo pa un cafecito. Casi.
To those of you watching, he just said, David, are we ready for some coffee?
A little coffee.
For a little
I
coffee.
remember seeing one of your, I don't know if it was a podcast or an interview where you were talking, you were using the term cafecitos.
Yeah, for us, a cafecito is not about the size of the coffee. The translation will be little coffee, but if it's this coffee or this coffee, we say cafecito. You see? And then,
Which is different than like a carrito, which is
yeah.
truly a small car.
A carrito is a small car, and a huge car is something else.
We're gonna try now some Café Trogon. This is the first batch of coffee we harvest. David here is gonna prepare it now, pour over the B60, and yeah, high expectations here. And I hope you guys like it.
I'm sorry, what's the V60? This type of coffee maker was?
El P60 nació en Japón
Okay, this is born in Japan. Okay.
por el tipo de cristal
Okay.
del cual está hecho el método
Uh,
y la caída en B60, en 60 grados, por eso se llama B60.
okay. It has a fall in 60 degrees. That's why it's called a V60.
Sí.
Okay, let's do it. So you
Hey, drinking
coffee. Yay.
Moby.
How about it?
Hector, maybe you want to talk about the bloom here.
The bloom is very important, man. It's very important. You could tell how new or old the coffee is. From the bloom, I call it like an atomic bomb. It's just like, it's a beautiful process. I love the little bubbles that come up because it's releasing CO2. The best part is me trying to explain it to somebody is I'm like, what coffee do you brew? Let's say X brand that's national somewhere. And there's just zero contact. It's just like so old that you don't really get that type of reaction.
You pour the water on it, just like it's like dirt, just flat.
You're right. It's just flat.
So the more bubbles, it's fresher.
The bell, right? Yep.
Is a reaction to CO2, hot water and CO2.
Because after you roast the coffee, it'll spend 5 or 6 days degassing, which is why you've got those like little breathing vents on coffee bags.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then once it's degassed and there's not much left.
I think one of the biggest, like I understand it, but I think one of the biggest things is a lot of companies. So this is the freshest cup of coffee you're gonna have, or this is roasted last night, or da 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 da. And like when you get into the industry, it sounds cool, but then you learn that you need a degas coffee, you need to rest it and stuff like that. It's like people cook a steak and they don't eat it like literally fresh off the thing. You gotta rest for some time, or wine gets aerated and stuff like that. I think every little thing has its own technique, and coffee is one of them. You don't want the freshest cup of coffee in the world. If you actually have coffee for the first month, every other week it'll be a different coffee because it's developing and settling into itself. So the bloom is important. So,
And this is my favorite way to actually brew a cup of coffee.
Really?
Why? Why?
Yeah, it's great.
What?
The cleanness
the
with a
benefit?
paper filter, it's really for just a regular cup of coffee, it's super clean. It highlights all the natural, I think, qualities of that coffee.
Yeah.
Espresso is completely different. It takes and compacts it into a much smaller volume of water. But there's something about the cleanness of a pour over. My wife is a French press. I'm like, it's just too gritty for me.
So if because you have your Dominican roots, and of course you're gonna love Greca.
Yep.
But if you talk to anybody that knows a lot about coffee that has no idea about Dominican Republics,
Yep.
what will they say about a Greca?
I'm gonna be honest with you. When I started in coffee, somebody told me that I shouldn't put specialty coffee in a greca. Somebody told me.
I should have what?
Should put specialty coffee in a greca because it kind of defeated the purpose for that.
Okay.
And that to me made me feel, as I would say in New York, some type of way. Because you telling me my culture is like in Valley. Yeah. I'm Dominican. That's what we do. And for me to educate my mom, that was my first person to educate.
Okay.
I started by taking my specialty coffee, grinding it for a greca, and brewing a greca. Like, look, this is the difference of the coffee.
Okay.
So for me, it's like,
Y se nota like you could tell the difference. Oh, yeah. Quality coffee.
yeah, you could taste the notes. You know what I mean? So I think for me, it was that big piece of como la traducción. Like, how do I take specialty coffee and start you off back to the greca? Like, I'm not going to be like, de que doña, de la greca una vez 60, they're going to be like, y esta vaina. So it's like, how do you bridge that gap for them? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you use the greca, then start with that, and then you get into something else. And sometimes, I think there's nothing wrong with it. Like, if that's what you like and that's what you know, then there you go.
And it's not too different than an espresso,
Yeah, no. Well, it's 3 bars of pressure instead of 9, so.
but it's going in that direction.
It's the same thing, yeah.
All right.
So at the count of 3, it's just a shot. Like, no, I'm kidding. No, don't do this at home.
So far, so good. This is,
Smelling good?
yeah, it smells beautiful.
Do we toast?
You know, I was thinking about that. I'm thinking about that. Like, do we cheers coffee? Or somebody with me in the comment section. That's bad luck.
So we make a taste, right?
I know.
Yeah, we make a toast.
What I said? Do we toast?
Oh.
Is that wrong? Is that bad English?
No, let's, okay. To Dominican coffee and culture.
Cheers to that day. Oh, shit. Go.
That's great. I love it.
Como que dicen, se puede casar.
Yeah. Yeah, and here you say you can get married. Yeah, this it's very smooth, very soft. I like it.
You know, I first started enjoying coffee. Like the coffee, not just enjoying the experience of having coffee together. Was at a coffee shop in South Dallas, Crooked Tree, and it was one of our favorite roasters, who to this day still buys our coffee. Took me to a coffee shop. Like, this barista is like, tan enfermo, como like crazy about your coffee. But he didn't know I was coming to visit. And so I sit there with my dad and Shannon, he's a roaster. And the barista brings over the coffee, and it was my first experience truly enjoying a cup of coffee. And it was from our farm, roasted by one of the best coffee roasters in the world, I would consider, with Oak Cliff Coffee Roasters, and a spectacular barista. And I was dumbfounded that coffee could taste that good. And it showed me the importance of, you know, checking the box across every piece of the supply chain. Every person is important. And the result is something like this, just spectacular.
You know, sometimes me and my team we're cupping coffee, and sometimes they ask me to, and I'm like, no. Because I'm like, I don't know, I'm not weird or anything, or maybe I am, but I had to be in a certain mental state. Got it. To pick up tasting notes. I could go cup right now and be like, I don't taste nothing.
I pick up a little bit of chocolate.
I'm getting peach, strawberry. There was one more thing. Grape. Says a natural, right?
Yeah, it is.
But I could rarely sometimes pick up notes. Sometimes when I'm happy like this around great company, it's like, you turn on. It's like, boop. It's like I have to want to talk to the people around about coffee for it to be on or something. I don't know.
I mean, I'm getting hints of like roasted almond.
Really? Yeah.
A mí me dio chocolate. I'm getting chocolate. I'm getting chocolate.
You know what's funny? Coffee gets better as it cools down. That's when you really get the taste. Most of the property you get it.
Which is something we were talking about education part for like some people here, they just love to like burn their tongues with oliveria. I have customers that are like, please burn my mouth. I'm like, sign this way. Sign this way.
That one's got sued.
Well, I mean, if you're starting with really good coffee, as it cools off, it just continues to evolve.
Yeah.
Develop. It's
Also, as you can see, you can say you're tasting coffee, but you're drinking bourbon. You see, and nobody will say anything bad about you.
Yeah, it has a nice.
That was very tasty coffee. Really, I really enjoyed it. Very good.
felicidades. Congrats.
Ariel.
There's a lot of pressure you bring in your first was worth the wait.
So this is the second time anybody tasting this coffee.
Yeah. Are you second time perfect?
Well, I feel honored. That's great. This is great. What's the name again of the coffee?
Café Trogon.
Café Trogon.
You really gotta roll your R's there.
So you know what that trogon is?
I was just about. That's a good question. I was just about.
What? What is a trogon?
Un pájaro.
A bird.
A bird.
Oh, really? Neil and Trogon, yeah. It's an endemic bird. The papagayo. One with the red belly? Yep, that's the one.